In today's video, we install coilovers on the GTI. We went with Ksport. I've become really good friends with them over the years. They've always been a huge supporter of the channel. I've never really had any problems with coilovers. I'm a pretty simple guy. I dial them to the middle, not too hard, not too soft for all these street cars. I'm sure as things progress on the channel, I'll learn more about suspension and get more picky. But for now, they've been awesome. You can actually pick them up locally if you're in the Phoenix Valley. They're a fairly easy install. You can definitely do them with 4 jack stands and a jack on the ground. I'll talk about a strut spreader socket in a little bit. That is super important to make this job easier. But let's make these 19-inch wheels sit flush in the fenders and really make this car pop, because ride height makes a huge difference. I can't recommend getting coilovers enough for any of you guys out there. If you buy wheels and tires and you just kind of skip out on coilovers forever, you're missing out on all the fun of enjoying looking at your car, because once it's lowered, you're just like, oh, I feel like this stands out. To every person out there, there's like, man, your car looks nice, and it's literally that 1.5 inch gap of lowering it most of the time to make all the difference in having a car that stands out. This is a strut spreader socket. I would order one of these before you start this. We use a 1/4 inch ratchet. It works, but you definitely won't regret buying one of these. I wish I had one. It showed up after the fact. Amazon Prime, go ahead and get this before you even order your coilovers. The first thing you want to do is get the car on a flat surface, measure the wheel gap, the front and rear, that way you know what to do with the new suspension. I'm lining up my fender to tire and then leave a little bit of room above that. I don't want to go too low, I still want to be able to drive the car hard. We'll pull the wheels off. If you guys don't know how to put your car on jack stands, because I'm assuming some of you guys don't have a lift at your house, we just got this lift and I don't want you guys to be discouraged by that. So I have a video on the second channel linked below on how to put your GTI on jack stands. You can go get yourself a jack. 4 jack stands is not too expensive. You can do it in your driveway, in your garage, in the street, wherever you're at. As far as tools goes for this install, once you get the wheels off, we've got an assortment of sockets: 18, 16, 13, 18mm wrench. Then we have these 12-point Allen sockets. This is to get the axle out of the transmission in the front. They're a 12-point Allen socket. I have a link in the description. It's a Volkswagen, Audi, German car thing. We have our mallet. You need some sort of hammer like this, and we have a couple extensions that you're going to need as well to get the axle out. Standard ratchets, torque wrench if you want. We have these little metal clips that hold the cowl on. We're going to remove those, make space to get to the top bolts for the stock strut. We're going to remove our sway bar end link you just saw, take the nut off, push it out, and then we're going to remove the bottom bolts for the stock strut. And then from there, we're going to have to remove the axle from the transmission. That way we have enough room to slide this thing out. And then we're going to end up getting a 1/4 inch ratchet and then sticking in the back. That's when you need this specialty socket I mentioned at the beginning of the video. It's called a strut spreader. Makes your life so much easier. So now we got our 12-point. It's a M14. Pull all the individual bolts out. Mark where things lined up so everything goes back the same. Randall has that little yellow pin. You can see how that strut moved right there and it created some space. Now we can wiggle this thing out. This is where we measure how long our stock strut is versus our coilover, and then subtracting the length that we want to drop the car. That's usually where I start. If you guys do it differently, comment down below, let me know. But it's pretty straightforward. I think I did 2.5 inches, so I went ahead and lowered it that much. We're going to dive more into how this is set up right now. If you can twist the spring like this easily, it's too loose. What you want is, let's tighten it up in here. On coilovers, there's always 3 rings, at least on these Ksports. You've got your ring that adjusts the compression of the spring, and then to adjust your spring rate, and then you've got your lock ring that holds the spring tight, that holds the spring in place. So you don't want the spring to get loose or tight while you're driving, and that's why there's 2 rings here. So that bottom one sucks up against it and keeps it from moving. This ring down here is strictly to hold your ride height position in place. It kind of can stress you out if you're really new to cars, having all these rings and things moving. It's really simple. So the goal is to get this ring tight where you can slide. If you hold the rings in place, you can barely slide by hand. Slide the spring, that is, left and right by hand. It's tight, it's stiff, but you should be able to move it just a little bit, and that's when you know there's enough tension on the spring. So you want to be able to barely move it by hand and then tighten up your lock ring at the bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and take it down here, grab my 2 supplied spanner wrenches, go opposite direction to tighten it. These are knuckle breakers. Double check that I can spin this a little bit. Got to put some pressure behind it, and everything's kind of locked in place. Your top hat can move to adjust, and then before we go any farther, I'm going to snug these up because I do not want those to move. A lot of the times these will come loose because you didn't tighten them from factory, and then you'll be driving and you hear like clunk 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 clunk, and it has nothing to do with down here. It's usually because these are loose and the camber plate is sliding left and right. And if you didn't know, this is a camber plate. When you slide it one way or the other, it cambers the wheel in or out. This is your adjustment. Usually this is changed by whoever aligns your car, and you can kind of just center it and then put it on the car. If you get it on the ground and your wheels are cambered way in, you can come adjust these and then put it back and then kind of straighten them out a little bit, take it to get aligned, and then they'll dial it in for you. This is exactly why you need that strut spreader tool. This shows you exactly what it looks like. It sucks using the ratchet, but we got the job done. We can go from the top and attach the top hat with the bolts. With a little bit of support to push the top hat up there, makes it possible to thread in your bolts to hold the top hat on. Got all 3, check. Another thing before you put this in the car is you want to set your adjustment for your shock. So I'm going to twist this all the way one way. To the left is softer, to the right is harder. I'm going to count how many there are. So 1 click, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 36 clicks. So I'm going to go 18 back the other way. I'm going to end up in the middle, and that's going to give me kind of how I like my cars to ride. Soft but stiff enough. This tool comes with the kit. This is ready to be installed. And then it slides in real easy just like that. Now we can take our pry bar, pry it open, and get that socket out and tighten everything down. We got our bolt back in the bottom right here. We got our sway bar end link back in its original location. Get everything hand tight. You might have to lift up on this with your hand a little bit. We're gonna tackle this side. We took the pry bar, got our socket in there, and to get to our axle, it's much easier from this angle. Passenger side rear, we've got an issue. I believe this is a charcoal canister right here in the way. We can't get to that top bolt. T20. Start pulling off all of our fender liner. If you haven't checked out our Amazon list in the description of garage tools and necessities, it's really useful. You can get little magnetic bowls like this. Whole thing moves out of the way. We got lucky. 16mm. Sway bar end link sits inside this arm, so we got to get this off to lower this whole control arm far enough to get the spring out. 13 on both sides. Get the spring out, rubber grommets, they're gonna hold it in. Leave those in there, keep the top one. Let's go inside and set these up. Disregard the mess, we're moving on to the rear. We're gonna take our measurement with our rubber piece on top to give us a good idea of what we're working with. So we're about 12 inches. I wanna get to 9.5 inches if I can. I'll tell you right now, I already did the other one. You're not gonna make it there, but I'm gonna show you kind of what the plan and how this works. So let's get our spring ready. Let's grab our height adjustment, basically top mounting piece for the rear spring setup on these. On these hatchbacks, you have the spring separate from the actual shock or strut, whatever you want to call it. And it's kind of a bummer, but it's how these things work. It's nothing you can do about it. On like a 350Z or something, you have like an actual coilover like we have in the front on the rear, and the adjustment is the same all around. But the higher you bring the rings up on this means the lower the car is going to be, because it sits most of that length in there. And you got to remember that your car is going to settle over time. So especially on these springs, since they're new, it's going to take about 500 to about 1500 miles for it to completely settle. Some people will say 500. I say after about 1500 you can really see where it's going to sit. Most of these hatchbacks, you can't get them low enough in the rear, so I'm going to max this out, hope that it settles right, and then if when you do adjust it later, it's actually not too bad. So I'm going to put this on here like so, and then I'm going to set this down, take my measurement from the top to the end. We're at about right under 10 inches, 9.75, 9 3/4, so it should settle to 9.5. But we need to make sure that we have these tight, and what you're going to do, take your 2 spanner wrenches and don't crack your knuckles on the table. Oh, it goes the other way. You never know. It seems like you just always forget how these things tighten. So you're going to press them against each other, and they're going to lock each other in place. Now what happens if you lock this down and it's too tight and you can't get them loose? You're going to try everything you can. When I have my hands on these things and I'm about to press down as hard as I can, and then you're going to crack your knuckle. When I'm pressing down real hard, I start to like flare up my fingers, so that if it does snap, at least I'll flatten my hand and not flatten my knuckle. If we want to take it a step further, we have our new vice grip in here. You can tighten this bad boy in here. We have tons of room for activities to not crack our knuckles. So if you guys don't know how to install these, never seen one, make sure you check out our garage building videos if you're new here. This vice grip has been a life changer for sure. But let's slide this in the spring, go put it in the car, we're ready to go. Same procedure on the driver's side. This side's even easier because we don't have a charcoal canister. My only tip for you is the fender liner, pull it out, like pull it towards you, then slide the socket up in there. Stock, strut, shock, whatever you want to call it. Push this little cover off. Then we need to get this nut off inside there, which can be kind of tricky. I'll show you how. Let's step over to the vise, or you get your friend to hold it with you. Alright, so 17 millimeter. This is a go-through socket set. I have one linked below in our Amazon list, but I bought this from Harbor Freight if you want to pick up local. This lets you see through to the nut. Inside here, you need to grab a hold of this little tab, hold it in place while you loosen this. Then you take a 17 millimeter impact, try and snap it loose just enough. Now we can get it off by hand, because if you put power to it, it just spins. It takes a little bit of time. Take your nut off from here, slide your shock out, set that aside, come over here. We need to get this metal piece off here. We're gonna cut off this zip tie. Then we're gonna pull off our rubber piece. There's gonna be a yellow looking deal in there. You just need the metal piece. Let's get our stock shock absorber here, then our fresh Ksport one. Now the first thing we can do, just before we forget, hard and soft dampening settings. It's got 30 clicks, so I'm gonna go all the way to one side and then go 15 in. Okay, 15 in. Let's take our top nut off, leave this to the side. Now let's measure this original one. We're at about 27 inches almost, and we're taking 2.5 inches off. So let's do 24.5. So same thing with the coilovers in the front. We're gonna rotate this bottom piece to adjust. This does not change ride height. Your spring changes ride height, but you have to have your shock matching your spring height so that it doesn't blow out this shock. So what can happen is if you have it too short, it's going to be pulling down constantly and overextending the shock, and then it breaks it that way. If you have it too long, when you hit a big bump, it's going to send the rod up in here to the top through the casing or the housing of this, and then just explode this thing. So you want to have it so when you hit a big bump, it stops, you know, 3/4, 90% way up, and then goes back down, and it has full room for travel. That's a really kind of dumbed down way to explain it, but it's kind of all you guys need to know. So we're going to 24.5, need a little longer. Too much. It's good right there. And then we're gonna take our lock ring, spin it all the way down. We're gonna hold the bottom, use our spanner wrench, snug it up, and then we're gonna double snug it up once we get it on the car. Stand this guy back up. Let's get our top hat from the OEM setup and get it in place. Get our new nut with this is a lock nut, has the rubber piece at the top. Make sure that vibration doesn't cause it to come loose. Lift up the cover, wrap a microfiber so you can get a grip on it. You want to hold this by hand and then push it up. Take your impact slowly, tighten it. Got that one first try. I had to really grip onto that thing. Make sure everything's good. Don't over tighten it, and make sure everything feels tight, snug. Put it on the ground just for fun. Press it down, and then feel how smoothly it comes back up. And that's gonna leave us with a nice ride quality. So let's go slap these in. Shock dialed in, charcoal canister in, spring good to go, sway bar end link in place, shock bolted down. We've got our control arm bolt here tied into our hub. Fender liner is back in. We've got our passenger side dialed. Step one, let's get our spring in here, set it in the bucket, and it ain't that simple. We're gonna twist it till it finds its home. Alright, we're gonna slide our new shock up into place, let it sit inside the arm real quick, let everything kind of hang, and grab our longer one, slide it through the bottom. Okay, grab our little shorter one, and get my buddy over here. This could be a car jack. If you're on the ground, just a regular jack, put it under this control arm when you're on the floor. Anything to raise it besides your own strength. You should get your spring in place. Put our nut on there so we don't lose it. Don't tighten anything else up yet. While we're at it, let's get our sway bar end link in place. Beautiful. Now I'm looking at the top of my shock, that it's in place. Everything's good there. Get my 2 bolts. Just walk these in by hand. Remember, this is kind of weird with the fender liner, but it works. All right, let's lower it, put the wheels on. Hope we nail the fitment first try, because I don't want to take the front apart again. It's the moment of truth. We're gonna go ahead and lower it. You can see the Ksport's up in there. Please be right first try. Please. Oh wow, the rear is low. Well, this is a good sign. This is gonna settle real nice. The front, I hope it moves a lot when the weight gets settled on it. Oh man. Goofed up, but the back looks nice, like really nice. Top measure on the top hat like so. I started at about 11. That was where it was. Now I'm gonna make it so it comes right up to 9.5, where that lock ring is at. Now I'm gonna twist this all the way up into place. Let me add clarity. This is how it was, how I didn't like how it looked. You can see the lock ring is at about 11. We're gonna move that to 9.5. So let me do this adjustment and I'll show you. This is looking like a proper wheel gap at full droop. It might not be perfect, I might have to make another adjustment, but hey, let's see what happens. If you guys need these wood blocks, it's in our garage building videos, or you can go to Cameron Alford too. I have all the tutorials on that channel for little stuff. You can build yourself some of those, it's really easy. Please be good, please be good, please be good. That looks pretty good. If it settles a little bit, that'd be perfect. I want to be able to drive it still and not have to baby it, so. By looking at it here, I definitely want to raise the rear because I like how the front looks. But, I mean, I could totally pull the tux look like that, but it's just not really me. So let's raise the rear, maybe like ½ inch, and they're gonna settle. It's gonna look nice. I really like how you can see the tread. Almost. Alright, here we go. It's been a long day. It's about almost 100 degrees out here in AZ. It's hot out here. Come on, baby. Let's be perfect. Ooh! Oh, it's just a little too high. I hope it's gonna settle. Oh, snap. Yeah, it's good. Oh, it's real nice. It's gonna be, when that rear springs settle in. Yay! Little bump test on my gate. Okay, no weird sounds. Oh, love to hear it. Nice and quiet. The car says it's 104 right now. I've been outside all day. Yeah, it's summertime. It's time to hit the pool here soon. Whoa, it turns real nice. Windows up test, no AC. If you want to order some Ksport coilovers, I have a link in the description. Check them out. Don't forget, if you're in the Phoenix Valley around here, you can pick them up locally in Mesa. KarmaSpeed.com if you guys want to shop some high quality t-shirts, apparel, hats, and stuff like that to support the channel, to bring up the camera quality, production quality, keep growing our team, get more builds done, bigger and better and faster. Karma Speed podcast channel, don't forget to search that or go to my channel and you can see the featured channels on the homepage. I have all the information there. We upload new episodes every Wednesday. Thanks so much for your time. Hope you guys get out there, get after it with your GTI. Appreciate you guys being here. Have a good one.